Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today we're going to take a look at a fantastic set of addressable RGB fans and a controller which isn't going to break the bank. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we're going to take a look at some RGB fans. Now at the moment this box that you can see is very bland, very basic, and it actually belies what is inside the box. So essentially this is from a company called UPHere. You may have heard of them before. They do a lot of sales on Amazon around the world. Definitely worth checking out. Now I've actually had these fans out already and we did a live stream, which if you want to you can check out up here. And we went into a little bit more depth in these, set them up and made a pyramid out of them so people could see what they look like. We will be doing that later in the video. I'll be putting these into a PC and doing some temperature testing, so if you want to skip forward to that, we'll put some links in the video description so you can fast forward to whichever part of the video you actually require. So if you just want to see what they look like and how well they perform, then you can skip ahead to that. But if you want to see what you get, how it all works, and find out my impressions of them, then keep watching. Okay, so the first thing to do, let's take them out of the box and see what we actually get. Now, these are actually a 6-pack of fans, and it comes with its own controller as well. So if you've got a motherboard which doesn't have an addressable RGB header on it, don't worry, it's not a problem. There is actually a separate switch in here which you can use to manually change the lighting. But if you're using a motherboard from, say, MSI, Asus, ASRock, those kinds of things, then you can plug these into the 5-volt addressable header on your motherboard and they will act as a pass-through, which is fantastic, so plenty of flexibility. So in the box we get a very brief instruction guide and tells you where to plug everything in, gives you some advice on how to set them up, that kind of thing. So we'll possibly come back to that a little bit later. You get a selection of 6 Velcro straps or ties, so for cable management, if you want to tidy up the cables inside after, then you can use those. Obviously if you want to, you can just use cable ties or whatever. Get 6 sets of the case fan screws, as you'd expect, because there's 6 fans in there. And then we get the controller. Now the controller itself looks very similar to the Deep Cool, I think it's the DH10, which we reviewed in a previous video. This actually does both things. So this not only is a fan controller and a hub, it is also an addressable RGB controller and hub. So this can be mounted in the back of your case somewhere. There is a 3M adhesive strip on there. Of course, if you wanted to, you could use Velcro or something like that if you want to be able to remove it easily, that kind of thing. Or you could just stick it in the bottom of your case. You don't have to stick it down if you don't necessarily want to. So let's look at some of the connections on here. So first of all, this is a reset button. So what you can do is you can attach this. This allows you manual control of the lighting effects. So all you do is press the button, as you'd expect, and you can cycle through the colors. Now if you wanted to, you can plug that into the reset switch, so it's just one of your normal 2-pin headers. Literally plug in your reset switch from your PC, disable your reset button, plug it into here, and then you can take control of it from there. So very flexible in that regard. The next one is what will be quite a good thing to see for most people, is a SATA type electrical connection. So the Molex connectors have now gone and we're on to the 2020s and we're kicking off with some SATA connectors for power, which is a very welcome thing to see. Especially for those of you that are a little bit concerned about cable management. Chances are you're going to have SATA drives in your machine at some point, whether it's an SSD or a hard disk drive. It'll be quite easy to use one of your existing connectors on the power supply to power this unit. So that means you don't have to have necessarily another wire coming from your power supply, which is great news. So moving around to the next connector. Now this is a combo connector. Now this one has got 2 connections on it. So it's got your motherboard sync, so that is to your 5-volt addressable RGB. And also you've got a 4-pin PWM connector. Now this will attach to either your chassis fan header or your CPU fan header, depending on your configuration on your motherboard. So in your motherboard's BIOS or in your software for, say, AI suite for Asus boards, you can go in and you can control your fans, and this will send the PWM signal from your motherboard directly through to all of the connected fans to the hub, which is fantastic. So you don't have to worry about the fans being on full speed or whatever, or ramping up or ramping down unexpectedly. You can take complete control of your fans, which is fantastic. So this actually has various connections around the outside for connecting up. Now, to get full benefit out of this, you do need to plug in your first PWM fan or one of your UPHere fans to fan port number 1. That is very important. So fan port number 1 connects directly or links directly to the PWM header and then sends that information around to the rest of the system, and also reports that back to your motherboard's BIOS, or if you've got some kind of monitoring software, it will give you an accurate representation of your fan's rotational speed. For the rest of the connections, you can just plug them in around the sides, and you've actually got 7 connections for fans. So you get 6 included, so if you wanted to, you could use the additional connector to maybe get 2 of these, and then you could daisy chain them on that last header. Again, that's probably a little bit overkill. I don't think there's many cases that will need more than 6, but you could always plug in something like an additional RGB strip, that kind of thing. Because it is the 5-volt addressable RGB, you don't have to have fans plugged into it. You can plug in any compatible 5-volt RGB devices. So around the sides, so you've got fan 1, fan 2, fan 3, fan 4 is on the end, then you've got fan 5, fan 6 and fan 7. So depending where you put it in your case, you've got a little bit of flexibility on where you can actually plug the fans into. So that's probably enough about the actual controller. Let's take a look at the fans. Now the fans are actually a really nice design. So what we've got is translucent blades and a nice design on there. It's regular size, so it's 120 by 120 by 25mm deep. So if you're planning on using these perhaps to replace a all-in-one cooler blades with standard fan, you can do that. If you want to, maybe you've got like a Hyper 212 Evo, that kind of thing. There's no reason why you can't replace the fan on that and put this onto your CPU cooler. The choice is entirely up to you. These are standard 120mm fans, so they will fit in a massive array of places. So the fan from the front and from the back, you can see the blades quite easily. And also there's a translucent ring which goes around the outside. So again, if you're mounted sideways on, you're still going to see some of that RGB goodness. So in the box you get 6 of these, and both of which, or all of which, have got 2 connections come off of them. So one of them again is your 5-volt addressable RGB connector, and the other one is your 4-pin, and it is fully wired 4-pin PWM connection for the fan speed, fan monitoring, all those kinds of things. So that is pretty much the kit as it stands. Now the reason I bought this is because I've got an InWin 103 case, which is very similar to the InWin 101 that I've got in the background. I wanted to deck it out with InWin fans, but unfortunately to deck out all 6 fans costs a considerable amount of money. We're not going to be getting much change out of £100 or $120 if you're in the US. This complete set with the controller, all the mounting hardware, everything costs £43 here in the UK at the moment. So if you break that down, approximately £10 to £15 for the controller box, that leaves you around about £5 per fan. So £5 for an addressable RGB fan, in my mind, is fantastic value for money. But I suppose the question is, do they actually look good? So let's find out. I'm going to stick these into the PC now. We'll do a quick bit of B-roll, and then we'll take a look at the fans when they're set up. Okay, so to start this off, what we're going to do is we've done some benchmarks of the case in its stock configuration. Now this is with a Ryzen 5 3600, pretty much stock settings. We've got DDR4 3600 running in there, and we've got a RX 580 Nitro edition. So we're generating a bit of heat using Unigine Heaven, and at the moment the internal temperature, which has been measured on this rather crude device, but does the job. So we've been up to about 36.8 is the most I've seen on here. Every now and then the fans ramp up on the CPU and it pushes some air out. So we seem to have stabilized around about the 36.5, 36.6 mark as the internal temperature for the entire case. Obviously that isn't taking into consideration hotspots such as the GPU and CPU, but this is the air temperature actually inside the case. Now the actual room temperature at the moment is 22.4, so difference between 22.4 being the ambient temperature and 36.8 as it is currently being the case temperature. It's quite a big difference in temperature, and actually in the room now, because it's been on for a while, you can actually smell the kind of newness of the plastic and the components where it's heating up, and you're getting that kind of off-gassing of the components. So it's obviously not a great thing. So what I'm going to do now, put the fans in, and we're going to run exactly the same test, let Unigine Heaven run for about half an hour or so, and then see what the temperatures are like inside the case with the fans installed. So we'll be back in a bit. Okay, so that was a lot of fun and a lot of cable management, surprisingly. Well, actually not surprisingly, 6 fans, 12 cables, a hub, all that kind of stuff. It's all got to fit in somewhere, but managed to do it. And as you can see from the results behind me, and possibly from some of the B-roll you've been seeing, it's actually looking pretty darn good. I like it a lot. We've gone in, used the fan xpert settings for the motherboard, set up all the fan profiles and that, and this thing is whisper quiet, it really is. And comparatively with the other in-win case, the 101, which had in-wins fans in there, it was definitely a little bit noisier. Now I am finding that the Freezer 33 is slightly noisier than the Freezer 34. Right, that's really difficult to say. So that is something we may have to address. I think it's just where the fan is slightly overlapping, and when it ramps up, there's a little bit of a whistle that comes from it. So I'm going to need to take a look at that, but otherwise, the actual case fans themselves are fantastic, and I think they look really, really nice. If I take the side panel off, you can see there is virtually no change at all whatsoever in the noise levels. It really is super silent, and the fans look absolutely fantastic. I'll put the case back on because, as you can see, there's a little temperature sensor there, so unfortunately that would have just changed the temperature slightly, but it won't have changed it a great deal because, to be completely honest with you, the temperatures inside the case are fantastic. Now at the moment in the room we're around about 22 degrees is the ambient temperature, which I'll quickly double check. So currently we are at 22.4, so not a great deal different from what we were a little bit earlier on in the day. And the internal case temperature at the moment is now at 24.9, which seems to be pretty much where it's stabilizing at. We did some other benchmarks earlier, ran some tests, and at the high load point we're getting to about 31 to 32 degrees, which is about 5 degrees less than what we were running at before. So even though the processor and the graphics card are reaching much higher temperatures, those fans are actually getting rid of the hot air out of the case and keeping the rest of the components cool. Now, one knock-on effect I did find is in the benchmarks, the low GPU results, which we had in the first one, where there was some kind of throttling and the FPS dropped down to 9 frames per second, we didn't have any of those at all with the fans in there. So having the extra airflow, although it hasn't dramatically reduced the overall temperatures, it's actually improved the performance. So the actual temperature results don't tell the full story, and all the components in the machine are now running very, very cool indeed. There's a PCI Express NVMe drive at the bottom, and that is running about 35 degrees even under relatively large loads. At the moment this machine's actually installing Photoshop and Premiere. All that's going on, and it's basically just taking it all in its stride. Temperatures are essentially the same as what they are at idle. So I'm really super pleased with it. Now, update for some of the fan speeds. The fan speeds ranged anywhere from about 500 RPM is the lowest I could register it at, and they went up to about 1300 RPM. And even at the full load, again, very, very quiet. I may do some tests a little bit later on and let you hear what the fan noises are like. But to be honest with you, they're virtually inaudible. I can't hear them over any of the fans in the machine. It is very, very quiet. And the whole setup actually was very good. One thing I have done, which you may have seen already from the B-roll, because the reset switch, there isn't one on this case, I've had to drill a small hole in the back of the chassis, and then they've got the glue gun out, and I've actually glue gunned the reset switch, which is included, into the back of the case. So if I want to change the lighting now, all I need to do is reach around to the back of the case and press the button, and now we can cycle through the colours. Now, if you want to revert back to the motherboard taking control of all the colours, all you do is press and hold the button for 3 seconds, and you get a flash, then release it, and now this has gone back to the ASUS software controlling the fan LEDs, which is really good. And we'll quickly go through the colour schemes now. So if I take the side panel off, and we'll go through the colour schemes. So there's a blue, white, yellow, blue. You get the general idea. So most of these are just patterns. It's the usual kind of setup. Going through the various colours. And then you get the sort of the pulsing colours, individual colours, which you can go through again, red, green, blue, yellow, blue, pink, white. I think that's the last of them. So then that's a slow fade through the RGB colour cycle. And then you get the usual things like the wipes, transitioned from one to the other. And this is kind of like your traditional RGB flow, which actually I really like, and this works really well in this sort of case. Then you've got your unicorn puke, which again actually I quite like. And then a slightly different variation of that. And then you've got all your kind of your jazzy LED effects. And then into the solid colours. So you get the general idea. There's quite a lot of flexibility from the actual onboard controller as well. Obviously, depending on your motherboard, you can take full advantage of that using the motherboard software. The Asus one actually isn't particularly great, and there isn't a lot to choose from. Essentially, it's just like single colours, flash and dash, all those kinds of things. But you can be as creative with it as you wish to. Obviously, again, if you want to, you can add in more RGB strips to lighten it up a little bit more if you wanted to. But for me, I think this is fantastic. 6 fans and a controller, £43 here in the UK. When you break it down to the individual component prices, like I said before, £5–6 per fan, plus the controller for like £10 to £15. An absolute winner. The fans are super silent. I think they look fantastic. Again, that is very subjective depending on what your look is and what you're looking for. But overall, I'm very pleased with them. I certainly have saved a ton of money against going for like Corsair or any of the larger brands. I'd have been looking best part of £100 for this setup easily. So less than half the price, and what would be arguably very similar or the same performance. Certainly very quiet indeed. So I think that pretty much wraps up my review and first look at these. Again, temperature's been fantastic, easy to control. You've got the 4-pin PWM, you've got your motherboard sync, the whole package in one box, and a very bland box it is. So there you go, that has been the UPHere 6-pack. Now the actual part number for this is, after looking at the board, is T7SYC7-6. So if you want to order them, I'll put some affiliate links in the bottom, you can order them. If you do buy from them, we do get a little kickback. It doesn't come out of your end, it comes completely from Amazon, so you don't pay any extra or any less. It's just this normal Amazon price, but we get a little bit of a kickback. So if you want to order them, please do. I may order some more myself for other PCs we're building. So I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll be catching you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.